Hey everybody, my name's Ryan, but most of my friends call me Ellie. And I wanted to just kind of take a minute and talk to you guys a little bit about my journey with a rare disease called recurrent respiratory papillomatosis that I was diagnosed with in 2018. And I just wanted to share that story with you and let you know about the disease. So I was working in 2018 on the Arizona Democratic Party campaign, the midterms in Arizona. And during that time, I was traveling around a lot. The hot button topic at the time was pre-existing conditions and healthcare for people with pre-existing conditions. And we would go around talking about that over and over again. And like, I just pushed that on people. I'd say, you certainly know someone in this room probably who has a pre-existing condition, and, like they're going to take away healthcare for people with pre-existing conditions. This is a huge topic. We have to do something about this. And for the first time in a really long time, over 30 years, we ended up electing a Democrat to the Senate, and Democrats up and down the ballot, I think largely on the back of that argument. The funny thing that I didn't know at the time is that when I told everybody, you probably know somebody in this room who has it, lo and behold, I was a person with a pre-existing condition that was just in the works at the time. I started to lose my voice towards the end of the campaign, and I was going hoarse. It was becoming more difficult to talk. It used a lot more energy. And at the time, we just wrote it off to the nature of the work. It's like 80-hour work weeks. It's never ending. You're always talking. You're always training. You're always trying to make things happen. It's very busy. And there's these things called vocal nodules, which a lot of singers get and are very common. They're easy to get from just overusing your vocal cords. And so I thought with all the stress at the time, I wasn't sleeping that much, that it had to be that, right? Like I just had some vocal nodules and they'd probably go away on their own. They probably weren't that big of a deal. So the campaign ended. I moved back to Boise for just a very short period of time. That's mostly where I'm from. And while I was there, I tried to see a doctor about it, obviously, because I had lost more of my voice at this point. I was clearing my throat all the time. I didn't know what was going on. And so I went to a general practitioner, and they had to do what was called a laryngoscopy on me. That would be the first of many that I would wind up getting. A laryngoscopy is where they shove a camera up your nose to look into the back of your throat. And lo and behold, lucky for me, it was this general practitioner's first time doing it. So you can kind of imagine how comfortable that was. But he kind of gets in there and he doesn't really know what he's looking at. And he says, oh, I think it is vocal nodules, but I'm going to send you to a specialist. And that's when they sent me to the ENT in Boise. I went to that ENT, and I would, after a couple more scopings there, be diagnosed with recurrent respiratory papillomatosis. So for those of you who are not aware, RRP, as we'll just call it for the short version, it is a disease which affects the respiratory tract, and it causes growths along the respiratory tract in different places that unfortunately your body just doesn't combat. It's not thought to be genetic. It's not thought to be contagious. 7% of the population at any given moment in time would test positive for the bacteria in their mouths, but most people's bodies are able to fight the bacteria and cause it from, or it never has growths for them. 1 in 25,000 juveniles will be diagnosed with this disease, and 1 in 50,000 adults will be diagnosed with this disease. So I decided to obviously have it operated on. I couldn't talk. I didn't really have an option. And so I spent almost all the savings that I had on that surgery. It cost a little more than $8,000, I think. And it didn't really help that much, unfortunately, that first surgery. My voice, restored slightly to working order after being anesthetized, going through the whole 9 yards, but it didn't leave me in a great position. But I moved to DC. That had been my plan, and I pursued it. I moved to DC, and I found it getting worse again, and eventually I was back maybe worse than I'd ever been. My voice was so hoarse, it was like less than a whisper. Everybody thought I was sick all the time. It was the most difficult experience of my life. It is really hard to understand until you don't have your voice, just how important it is to every facet of your life and people listening to you at all. if people have to put an effort into listening to you, people already don't want to listen to other people. Just imagine when it's hard for them to do it and they think you're sick and they don't want to be anywhere near you, especially for people over this last year with COVID. So it was really tough. And luckily, I found Dr. Best at Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins is, of course, one of the best hospitals in the world, and Dr. Best has been specializing on treating this disease for a long time. He anesthetized me and put me under surgery once. I had some pretty substantial improvements, and then the second time I was actually able to do an in-office procedure. That in-office procedure does involve, if you thought the cameras up your nose were bad, lasers up your nose. They actually stick a laser into the back of your throat, and they use that to just basically get the growths off of your vocal cords. And luckily, I've been in remission ever since. I really think that Dr. Best's surgical technique of using the laser as opposed to what they used in Boise with a more inexperienced surgeon is a lot more effective. And at least it was for me. And it's put me in remission ever since that third surgery. And that's been huge for me because honestly, I was really struggling to find the strength to go on when I didn't have my voice, because I have been in, debate and politics and all these things my whole life. And so my voice feels so important to me. Like I can't do it for shit, but I love to sing. And it was just really challenging. And so I don't know how long remission will last for me. It almost never lasts forever for anybody, but I am in remission now, and I thought that while I have the opportunity to do so, I should use my voice to speak out about this. It's a privilege to have it, and I took that privilege for granted for a really long time, and I spent well over a year without that privilege at all, really struggling. And so I want to make sure that I use my voice while I can and while I still have it to speak out. And I want to encourage those of you who can to donate to the Recurrent Respiratory Papillomatosis Foundation if you can afford to do so financially. rrpf.org/donate would be a great place to do that. Not everyone is as lucky as me. A lot of people, especially people who had this since juvenile onset, wind up with more than 300 surgeries. They get their vocal cords out. Sometimes they are in debt their whole life. They declare bankruptcy over and over again because these surgeries are so expensive. And some people, if it goes to your lungs, it can even kill you. So I want to encourage those of you who can help out to do so for this rare disease, and just to speak out in general. There's a lot of rare diseases that people don't know about. They're all valuable. It's important that we address all of them. And the best way, frankly, for us to do that is to get people universal health care. There's absolutely no way, if I was a person who was not as lucky with this disease as I am, that needed 50 surgeries in a year, there's absolutely no way that I'd be able to afford it. I don't even know what I would do. And never mind as if it's not bad enough to have the misery of the disability itself, you have this financial burden that is literally impossible to tackle. So in the meantime, I want to encourage people to donate to the RRPF Foundation, but in the long term, please, for those of us who do have a voice, use it every day to speak out in favor of getting our fellow citizens healthcare, because at the end of the day, that is going to be one of the key difference makers in people's lives and their desire to put up with any of this, because I know it's really hard for a lot of people in my community, and it's even more difficult when literally buried under hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in medical debt. And there's no excuse for that for anybody. So for those of you who can, please do what you can. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you guys all have a great day. Appreciate y'all. Bye.